keep this part in the video.
We could. The Garrett Perry Podcast, take 6. First time with a guest, Cori Johnson. Soon to be Corey Gidney. You actually gonna take his last name?
I don't know.
No?
I don't know. We'll see how I feel.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I've never actually said congratulations yet.
Oh.
It's only been on Facebook that I've known.
I guess so, yeah. A lot of people are just kind of finding out.
So a lot of people might find out today.
Yeah.
When they see this video.
I think so. Which sucks. I don't know. I might take Greg's last name. It's just sort of up in the air at the moment. I feel like
Is something you've been fighting about?
No, not fighting. I'm more or less like thinking about like all the ID changes and like
There's all the work that has to be done.
Yeah, like I'm lazy and I kind of don't want to, but then I think it's important to Greg, so I might have to. So.
Oh man. So when we got talking, when you found out that I live in the building that you used to manage, you told me there were stories.
Oh, yes, there is stories.
About this very apartment?
Okay, I would say not exactly this very apartment, but this is one of the apartments. So there was a couple. I can't remember their names, so I'm not going to mention them anyways. But
You shouldn't.
Okay.
Don't want to get sued here.
It was a young couple, and they seemed really happy, but then there was a lot of commotion, a lot of fighting, a lot of domestic abuse, and then we found out all the gossip, and it turned out that this guy found out that a girl he cheated with about a year ago had a baby. And this was like out in Kamloops or something, so he ended up having to up and move to go to Kamloops.
Take care of his baby.
Yeah.
Baby daddy.
And by the end of it all, they decided to stay together, and she moved with him. So that's the story of this unit.
Oh man, Jerry Springer.
I know. Throwing chairs and stuff. It literally was throwing chairs. There was some holes.
I was wondering what some of those patch holes. Okay, dokie.
And then next door there was just smokers, heavy smokers. That's about it. We got 3rd-hand degree smoke, and that's a real thing. You actually have to wear masks and stuff when you clean walls that people have been smoking a lot in a unit. So when you scrape it off, there was actually like this like black
gross
stuff falling off.
You sure they were just smoking? Maybe they had like a drum. They were having like hobo fires in there. That could be like just real smoke damage from actual fires.
No, they did have like a drum, but it was full of cigarette butts. They chain smoked like crazy.
Oh my god.
And they lived here for over like 10 years or something, so there was nothing in their contract to say they couldn't smoke in the unit. So there wasn't much we could do to really stop them, except, we can't evict them, we can't do anything, so we just kind of have to just hope that they respect their neighbors, which they didn't.
Oh no, I'm glad they don't live here anymore.
Yeah.
Nice.
So they were a headache and a half. So nothing too bad, but some stories in this unit.
So I heard that you were stressed.
Facebook.
From Facebook. What's that? Yeah. Well, you wanted people to know.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I was sort of like I don't know, work is kind of getting a little bit hectic. I work for the Olive North and all the First Nations communities. It's a lot of traveling, and it was almost 3 weeks straight that I wasn't really home, and I was really homesick, and then when I got back to work, I was not meeting deadlines, and I was super behind, and I was kind of getting in trouble by like payroll and everything, so very, very stressful. I did talk to my boss though. He told me not to worry about it. No one ever makes the deadlines, so turns out
You're just putting the pressure on yourself.
I know, it's like,
but they're real pressures. You gotta actually come through with what
yeah,
you
it's like, he told me, he's like, get it done, but he said the deadlines are more for, they have to give the deadlines because they've got like thousands of people, or well, not thousands, but like hundreds of people they have to deal with, so it makes sense. So it's all dealt with, and I had a ton of comments of people how they like...
Yeah, it went almost viral. Oh, that was viral in my world. I've never...
A bunch of comments about people and how they deal with stress, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Some people go shoot guns, some people do yoga.
Yeah, I was really stressed out a while back. I had to figure out what was wrong with me. It turns out I had a general anxiety disorder. Everybody has anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of anxiety. I was in a situation where there was an increased amount of anxiety, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And through talking to it with doctors is what really I figured it out, that it was an anxiety disorder. So I I'm not saying I'm better now, but I'm on the road to being better. They gave me a medication after a while because it was like a year where I was still feeling just anxious all the time and cutting everybody out of my life and everything. So the pills did help.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of killed me for the first week or two where I was just like dead, and that kind of sucked because it was right during my birthday too. And that kind of it felt sucky, but.
Yeah, so how long did you, like, I guess you didn't really know about it until you got the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And so how long do you think you were living with that?
Probably, it's hard to say actually, because I started developing symptoms when I was in high school. So possibly like 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and like really just trying to get along and live my life and figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy, 8 years.
Yeah.
And then it was the diagnosis that actually...
The diagnosis helped. I was way better by the time I figured out that I had to actually figure it out for myself. They gave me pamphlets, I had to do research and all that stuff. And
was it just the medication, or did you go through therapy?
I went through a few different counselors and there were like 8 sessions, an hour each kind of thing, and talking about it and just really just learning about myself more than anything and what I grew up with and how I dealt with situations. And really it was just like coping mechanisms too was a big thing that helped me, learning how to deal with these situations and also avoiding situations too kind of helped me.
Yeah, I get that. It was about 4 years ago I was actually diagnosed with bipolar tendencies. I wouldn't want to say bipolar disorder, but that's pretty well what it was. I was just too embarrassed to ever talk about it. And when I did bring it up, I actually used the term manic depression, which is the old term, but it was also a lot of anxiety. I had my first anxiety attack in Vancouver on a SkyTrain in front of a whole bunch of people.
Oh, fun.
First time I've ever experienced one in my life, and I had a breakdown. Luckily I was with a friend of mine, Jessica, and she really understood it because she went through a lot of it. And she's about 9 years older than me, so she's got a lot more life experience. She went through the anxiety, all of that stuff, so she was super cool about it. She didn't freak out, and she's like, we're gonna make it home, like, I'm gonna be with you the whole time, like, we're gonna be okay. And I'm bawling my eyes out in front of people, but, and that was kind of the first time I realized something was kind of not right. So, it was kind of really cool, like, having someone there immediately to just tell me what was going on, because I think without her being there, I don't know how I would have reacted. But I didn't actually get a proper diagnosis until about a year after. I just kind of gave myself my own diagnosis and then just moved on without even realizing that I actually did have a mental disorder. I hate the term because it's so stigmatized.
Yeah.
And I feel like people actually look at you differently the moment you tell them, and I'm not too sure. It's I don't like using the term bipolar because people think you have to be these extremes in order to be considered bipolar.
But it's not the case. I mean,
there's a million varieties.
That's true. And same, when I started opening up and talking about what was going wrong with me, I realized immediately that absolutely everybody was going through the same thing on different levels.
Yeah.
And specifically on my level wasn't bad compared to some people's. Like, it really put it in perspective for me too, just hearing about it and how bad other people suffered is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's interesting to see like how many people actually go undiagnosed or go untreated, and so many people deal with it and never talk about it.
And they find their own coping mechanisms, like smoking marijuana is a big one too, and it's very stigmatized within with the doctors themselves. They have a problem with it too.
Yeah, I did actually. So my grandma does have a medical marijuana card, and she told me that she had a really hard time finding a doctor to take her seriously. And it's not that she smokes it, she only eats it by edibles. She can't handle smoking it. So she's not even a chronic by any means. She doesn't, but she wanted it because she didn't want to take pain medications. She didn't want to kind of get stuck on those.
It's like a different level of drug. The pain medication's almost like kind of in the same tier as heroin. Marijuana's more.
Yeah, pharmaceuticals definitely. Opiates actually have been known to I don't know, get people hooked on other drugs opposed to their medications.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one of her fears. But what the doctor told her is that his biggest fear of giving out a medical marijuana card is that he's automatically labeled the marijuana doctor, and it's so stigmatized, and it's like he doesn't want to be that doctor. And so it's interesting to kind of look at it from a different perspective, but
And it's easier now too, because there's in Vancouver apparently it's so easy. That's like the
Yeah.
culture. There is no dealers anymore. The dealers have storefronts.
I know you
And
could just like
even in Prince George's, that place downtown, they don't have any weed on site anymore, but they do interviews over Skype to get you over to a doctor. It sounds sketchy to me. I haven't
they
been
do
there.
this in Vancouver though. You
Yeah.
could actually walk into one of those stores and they have like a whole separate room, and I'm not even joking. I did have a friend. He said he went in there and it asked him like, "What do you want to use marijuana for? Recreational use or medical use?" And the obvious answer is medical use, but he put recreational just to see what would happen, and it said, "Are you sure?" So I was like, I don't know.
It's so easy. Even my friends that don't even live in Vancouver have green cards just because they're passing through. It's just
Oh yeah, I met a lot of tourists in Victoria also who actually thought marijuana was legalized in BC, and they were so surprised to find out it was still illegal. It's like there's people walking down the streets, like they'll walk past a police car and just kind of hold their marijuana cigarette beside them and walk by.
it's awesome. Yeah, I was smoking a marijuana cigarette down the streets of Vancouver with my friend when I was standing down there. Like, you sure you could do this? This feels so wrong.
Are you sure?
Yeah, he was. I don't know. Maybe he was just ballsy. I don't know.
No, I think it's just the culture. It's like no one really cares about it anymore. It's
Yeah, my friend told me he flew out of Vancouver with medical marijuana, and they found it, and they let it, and they're like, "Oh, what's this?" And they just put it back in the container and let him go.
that's basil.
Yeah, well, they didn't even lie about it. That's what it was. It was obvious what it was.
Yeah,
they just didn't care.
like the medical marijuana actually has like prescription things on it, like those prescription. I'm not really those stickers that they put on the actual prescription drugs.
Yeah.
You can get those on these little containers that hold marijuana in them.
It's a different time we live in.
Yeah.
Trudeau's making a difference.
So, yeah, and honestly, it's I think for mental health, I think people do need it. I think it's kind of there's a balance. I guess there's balance with everything.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it doesn't help, and for other people, it really does. So.
Yeah, I found out through my doctor that I was addicted to marijuana. It's not a physical addiction, it's more of a mental addiction, but I was using it to cope with all the anxiety and stress that I had. I still smoke as much as I used to. And
But it's an addiction.
But I know it's an addiction now, and I use it as a medicine or whatever, call it what you want.
Yeah.
I am also on the legit medicine too, a doctor, little pills, they call it Celexa. I have to take
Okay. I can't remember the medication that I used to take. It was the same thing. I had a really rough couple of weeks and I didn't stick with it, and then I got to a different one and I really didn't stick with it, and I think that was more my fault. I
think so too, because I hear people going through these problems, going through multiple medications. This was the first one that was prescribed to me, and I stuck with it. It sucked a lot for the first 3 weeks, I'll tell you that, but I just stuck with it. And then about 6 months in, I felt myself stagnating, I guess, more lack of a better word, and I got my dose doubled up, and that's where I've been ever since, and it's almost been like 9 months since my dose was doubled up.
And it's been good?
It's been really good. It's almost been too good, It's like I got to introduce some kind of stressors into my life again. I got to start, like, getting out into the world,
Yeah.
And start doing things that I like to do before that I kind of cut out.
Yeah. Find some kind of hobby. And that's something I think, I don't know, I never really went down the medication route, but I think I've always had issues taking medication. Like, I've never been on birth, well, okay, I have been, but I was on it for like a month and I couldn't handle it. Like,
birth control?
Yeah, like I can't handle medication. I can't handle taking a pill every day.
Yeah, I have a hard time taking mine every day.
So it definitely wasn't for me. So I think What I went more like trying to do the exercise, the diet, and it's a lot of failures, like it's constant failures, I think, which is frustrating. I think I just went down a spiraling path, and then I got really good at it, and I was hiking all the time, lost a ton of weight, I was feeling awesome. But then I spiraled again after school, like when I like graduated, and I didn't have a job right away, and I think that kind of messed with my I don't know, like self-esteem, I guess. And so that kind of made me spiral a bit. And I think with the variation, like by bipolar, there's like two different types. I can't remember which one mine was. It was like type 2 or something, where I kind of stay under a lot more than I'm up. And when I'm up, it's not really like that high euphoric thing that most people associate bipolar disorder with, where you're up really high and you're super confident, super arrogant, and like,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I do get there sometimes, and I have to like calm myself down and remind myself, like, this is just your imbalance. It's just an imbalance in your brain, and it's more like I can be in control of it, but I think the stigma of it, and when you get diagnosed, you feel like you don't have control. You feel like it's a disease that you can't mitigate anyway. And I think people start to almost identify with their condition, which is what I did. I'm not saying everyone does, but I definitely identified with it to a point where I did nothing forever, and then I just kind of got to the point where it's like, I can actually do something. I can get up and go for a walk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
but there's that anxiety too that kind of was like playing a role, which it was like the anxiety to be seen, the anxiety to be alone, the like.
Mm-hmm.
I had so many problems just leaving my house, and even going to the grocery store by myself seemed like an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can say I can actually go to the grocery store and go purchase something, and that's a huge accomplishment to me. Where most people just think that's
Just
weird.
every day. You gotta do that on the way home.
I know.
That's how we're gonna eat. Yeah. Yeah, I can totally understand. I have a big problem. My big fear about going to grocery stores is getting recognized. And usually people like getting recognized and seeing their friends and stuff, and I don't know why that fear's been with me for a long time.
Yeah.
Ever since I was a kid, I didn't want to go to the mall, living up in a small town, I didn't go to the opportunity to go to the mall that much or
Yeah.
go to. And when I did, I don't know, I guess I started developing a fear.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
I don't know
though.
what the root is of that.
It's hard to talk about because it's embarrassing. It's just, I got the same way. It's like you see someone and you're so afraid they're going to have a conversation with me. And it's like, why am I fearful of that? Like, I have conversations with these people at school or at work, but when you're out of that element, it's like, it's almost like a vulnerability where they see you at a bit more of a vulnerable state, where they
Mm-hmm.
actually see the real you in the real world. And it's like, I don't want that. I don't want to have a conversation and say hello to somebody. And now it's so much different. I feel like now that I'm kind of taking control, taking accountability for myself, and actually moving forward instead of looking back. And it's like, and accepting that I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fuck up. That's basically it.
It's a big part of growing up, I think, and I think that's just the thing. Like when we leave our parents and we're done, we think we're grown up, we're adults. We're not finished growing up yet, and there's people get too complacent with their lives and kind of find themselves just getting depressed too easy. And I found myself doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think it worked well because I knew something was wrong, and I went and I sought help, and it took forever for me to actually get diagnosed.
Yeah.
But along the way I was building the coping mechanisms, and I was afraid to take medication, that's for
Yeah.
sure. And that's like they gave me Ativan, which is the one that they put under your tongue and it melts, and it's for
Yeah.
more social situations or panic attacks.
Yeah.
That did not help actually. It helped. I felt it.
Yeah.
And it was awesome to an extent, but then when I felt myself in a real big panic attack, like then it wouldn't really work then. And I just never took it. Like I couldn't decide when it was appropriate to take it. And if I was going out in public or going to a party or something, I felt like I had to take this drug to go. I just ended up not going.
Yeah. And yeah.
And just that's the thing that I find with edibles now too, that I could eat edibles and I'm not smoking marijuana all the time everywhere I go, and I find myself I could go to places and fit in a lot better. And I think it's just an awareness factor is what it is. Like I'm aware, I'm more, I don't know, I am stoned out of my mind, but I'm more sober at the same time,
Yeah.
like it's kind of like it puts other people in a paranoia state, and I think it's the exact kind of state, only I'm more able to control it now through experience.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I have taken the under the tongue one. I think I don't remember. It must have been Ativan.
I think you talked to me about that at one
Yeah,
point.
it was the one under the tongue, and honestly it was something I took just before bed because I had problems with getting to sleep, and it wasn't that I had insomnia, which I thought was insomnia, and seeing doctors about it, but it just turned out that's where I start thinking. Like right before bed I start thinking, and then next thing you know it's like 4 a.m. and I haven't got like single like a moment like where I can just relax and
Exactly.
sleep.
I find that's also like a really good creative place for me too, because at nighttime when everybody else goes to sleep, the world's shut down, my mind's awake. I kind of take advantage of that too and be creative, and I'll paint a cat painting or something, or do something. I'll write something. I feel like I'm a creative being somehow.
Yeah.
And I just haven't quite figured out where I belong yet.
Yeah.
I think I'm a filmmaker.
I think so. I would definitely agree.
Yeah.
No, so when I first got my job, and this is like a career, this is actually where I'm going to be for a very, very long time, and I was really excited about it, but there was points where I started having that sinking feeling, like, is this it? This is it for me? Like, I'm done? Like,
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, like, I don't feel good about this, and it's like, I love my job, but where it doesn't fulfill so many different parts of my life. And so I started sewing again, and I started painting again, and started doing, and it's like, yeah, you have to kind of find that thing that fulfills you a little, and I think I do have this creative side that's kind of flustering a lot, and it does need an outlet, but you don't always have time to give it that outlet.
Yeah. And that's something I totally took charge of my life, and I have a job now where I only work sometimes 2 days to 3 days a week, and I watch TV. I work for CKPG. I'm watching TV, and it is the greatest job ever. Like, I can't complain, and I come home and I watch TV for fun. So
I'm really good at it.
I'm really good at it. I've been practicing ever since I was a kid. My parents were telling me my eyes were going square. Like, maybe it would have been better if it did, so that would be better at my job.
Yeah, pro.
And watching TV, so I don't remember I was going that point for that.
The job.
How much time? Yeah, that's my job. So I have like a balance in my life, and also I want to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
They started playing some good TV on my station. They started playing Vice documentaries, and that's
okay.
awesome. It kind of feels like I'm inspired to do something like that too.
Yeah, I think you should. I think
But it's
important.
also, it's like I gotta be in front of the camera. I can't be behind the camera. I gotta find a film crew, but also there's no money. It's a big problem too.
Yeah, that's why you find volunteers like me.
Yeah, that's what you're in training.
In training.
Exactly, and that's the big thing that I wrote down was passions. And
Yeah.
like filmmaking and editing too. I remember as a kid, I remember watching like behind the scenes documentaries and stuff, the special features and the commentaries on films, and being really inspired by that.
Yeah.
And I love watching movies and TV. Pretty much The Simpsons raised me, so I remember drawing comics and stuff too, and just like I wanted to do animations, and I didn't have any cameras, I didn't have any means, but I dreamt about it a lot.
Yeah.
And when I finally got my first camera, I think I even made a little good film the first time with my friend.
I actually remember those in high school.
Yeah, I carried it on a lot.
Yeah.
I made a lot of films in high school, and then there's a point in high school where I think I kind of started having anxiety, and I think that was one of the first things, was my creative side just kind of fell off the map too.
And that's always the first thing to go too. It's like when you start suffering, I noticed when I go into my little dips, that's where everything's out the window. It's like I have all these projects on the go, and they just get put on the back burner and stuff. So that's what kind of one of my first cues. It's like, okay, I'm going into a bit of a dip now, and every time I get prepared, I get ready, and it's almost like I can get back up on the upswing quite quickly. And it's like every time it happens, I'm getting better and better. So I feel like eventually I'm gonna master this whole
just being a human thing, you know?
This whole being a human, the whole adult thing. I'm gonna figure it out when I'm like in my 40s probably.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Okay.
Carl Wiesen, my roommate, he's going to be playing Saturday, 11 p.m. at Sorokathon.
Ooh.
I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be filming it.
Excellent.
Just Carl's part of it. It's going to be fun. And I want to shout out to Prestige Guitars from Vancouver. I wrote them a letter asking them for a free guitar, and they wrote me a letter back.
No, sir.
Their guitars are now available at Sound Factory, and they're just the best guitars ever, by the way. So maybe one day I'll get a free guitar.
That's awesome.
And I want to shout out to Second Thoughts in Prince George, which is on 2nd of Corner and Brunswick. They have my CDs for sale. Pink Riot, the only place where they're available. There's another CD that goes along with this, and there's only 10 copies of the other CD. And it's much better than that CD, by the way. Any final words?
Nope.